to RunUltra. You had an amazing 5th place, joint fifth, I see, at the TDS. Is it is it shortened to Tour de Savoir, or do you just say TDS?
Yes, I just say the TDS.
Yeah. Obviously that was a very tragic race as well, but tell us about your happy experiences first, and how you got on there.
Oh, so the TDS was this is my 2nd time running it. It's the 2nd time that they have run the longer distance with more elevation. And the first time I ran it, I had a reasonably good race. I got around in a perfectly reasonable time, but I was really excited to come back this year. I just, to feel fitter on the start line and just in a better headspace mentally. When I ran it last time, we were in London, and it was trickier, and I hadn't spent so much time in the mountains. So to come back having had a summer of being able to be out in the mountains and kind of, train on them, I was really excited to see what I could do on that course. So it was good. Started really well. We had a 3 o'clock start time, which was quite different from the previous year, which was 4 a.m. So it meant that the big climb out of Bourg Saint-Maurice, which last time we did in the heat of the day, I mean, that was just brutal. This time for me would be at night. Okay. Our start was a little delayed. We had like half an hour delay, which made things a little bit tricky, because I'd kind of planned on getting down into Bourg Saint-Maurice with the use of not the strongest of my head torches. So kind of everything was then sort of half an hour later. But that was all good until about 2 hours in. I just took a little slide on some grass, trying to put a headphone in, and put my hand down to catch myself, and managed to dislocate and break one of my fingers. I've never broken a bone before. I've never dislocated anything, and sometimes I can be a bit of a wimp about stuff like that, but there was a girl up in front of me, and I'd just been working on letting her come to me, and she was there, and I was just like, well, I could go back up to the medic, but I can't run with it like this, because it's sort of 45-degree angle, and I don't know what came over me, but I was just like, okay, right, well, we better put that back then. Crack. The finger goes straight, and I was like, right, well, this is very, very sore, but you know what, I can keep running. It might make using poles uphill a little trickier, but I played a lot of netball when I was younger, and so I had a lot of sort of those, ball on the end of the finger injuries that I was, so I kind of figured, right, well, this is just gonna, I don't really know what I've done. I can't think about it too much because it's making me feel sick. I took a gel because I was like, well, obviously you'll be in shock, so better take one of them. And it's like, it's gonna expand, and that's okay, because at least then it will be supported. So I then just proceeded to just try and run with my fingers straight. I knew that my husband was going to be up at the top of Petit Saint Bernard, and so in my head, always pretty much, I if anything is going wrong, I don't really ever think about pulling out of the race, unless it was completely show-stopping, which I've never had. Always it is just get to a checkpoint or get to my husband, because if I'm really that bad, someone else will pull me out. My husband will pull me out, or a medic will pull me out. But a lot of the time, you think you are much worse than you are, and you get into a checkpoint, you're totally fine, and off you go out again. So I knew that I was going to see my husband at Petit Saint Bernard, and I kind of just was like, right, let's just get there. As we're going up that climb up in there, it starts like torrential rain starts coming down. We've just passed a guy in a survival blanket with 2 mates like beside him on the path, and you're like, okay, cool, this is getting epic, love that. And I just I saw my husband, and I was just like, I've broken my finger. I've desiccated it, I've put it back in place, but I'm gonna need some tape at the next aid station.
Make it go
and
away.
Also, Yeah, and also like maybe some mittens or something, because I don't think once I've taped it, I'll be able to get it into a glove.
Okay.
So then we, you know, I got up to the top of Potato St Bernard and everybody's sort of busy putting on all their layers, and I was like, so you know what, I've got my jacket on, I'm just going to get down. And so I did. I ran down that reasonably snappy actually, and saw my husband in Bourg St Maurice, and you know, he taped me up. He actually only just made it into the checkpoint as I did. He was like, you got here a lot faster than I was expecting. So he's sort of running in with me, you know, cut the fingers out of my gloves so that I could put them on, and they have little mittens that go over top. Taped up my fingers and had some food, and off I went into the night. And you know, doing that climb out of Bourg St Maurice at night it was an absolute godsend, because it's quite steep. It's like 5K that's very, very steep, and it gets very hot in that valley. And so being able to kind of regulate my temperature a bit, and then, you know, at that point I'm still soaking wet, so it's like, fine, great, this will really dry me off and let me get up higher. And so that's probably that part of the race. I mean, I think, as now everyone knows, is the most technical sort of section. You do this really long climb up, and there's some, I mean, it's not particularly tricky on the climb up, but then on the other side is an area that is roped, and the organisation had like floodlights on it. They had huge numbers of volunteers sort of telling everyone to hold on to the ropes and go slow, you know, really keep your speed down. I was terrified of falling on this again, and obviously was on that section just so aware that if I slipped, you know, I couldn't necessarily just grab with this hand. So I was very, very slow, and just, you know, let a couple of people pass me that wanted to go faster than me, because it's just like, no, this isn't for me right now. I'm just going to take my time getting done this bit. Doesn't matter if I lose time on it, whatever. I need to just get to the bottom in one piece, and then I can reevaluate where I am. When I was coming down, after I'd gotten off that point, when I was coming down, you know, we sort of started to see the rescue teams coming up. And I didn't know what had actually happened until much, much later in the race. You know, it was a helicopter, and I thought, oh, okay, someone's hurt themselves and they're coming in to rescue them. I mean, absolutely devastated to hear that someone died up there. You know, it's just heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. And all of those people that got turned around, you know, like they're trying to get 1,200 runners off the mountain for the organisation must have been some feat.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some photos. It might have been on your account or someone's account of because all the runners behind you, they had to sort of stop and wait, and they were all in their space blankets, and that, I mean, that, you know, the photo in the daytime of that drop and that path, just wow. I mean, awful.
Yeah, you know, and it's so tricky, right? Because we all go into the mountains, and that is a risk that we take.
Yes.
You know, we want to race on these technical terrains, and it just reminds you it is a very real risk that we are all putting ourselves in.
We never think about it, do we? We think about all the mandatory kits, and we think about, well, you know, I mustn't get cold, or I mustn't get hypothermia, or, you know, I might twist my ankle. But yeah, you never think about the worst.
No, I mean, I've done quite a lot of sky racing, and there's something about it, you know, you every now and then, you kind of can't let yourself have these thoughts when you're in a race as well. It's every now and then it's like, oh, if something were wrong here, it would be very, very bad for me. But the fact that you are on a marked course, and, you know, like, I think in a lot of sky races, you have to have experience on technical terrain to be allowed in them. You kind of it just doesn't really even register. So yeah, it was really, really devastating. I didn't even, so my husband at, what was it, Beaufort, he was worried that someone was going to tell me that the race had stopped. So I didn't know anything, basically. I kind of, when I race, generally I don't, often don't even know what place I am until I cross the finish line. I'm very much got to focus on what is happening to me and just focus on moving forward and looking after myself. So he said to me, like, look, the race has stopped behind you, but you're allowed to keep racing. And I just immediately thought, oh, well, they've just paused it. You know, maybe it was the bad weather, and maybe everyone's just been held at a checkpoint for an hour. I had no idea that actually meant, no, they've actually stopped.
Right.
And it wasn't until I got into the finish, when I started running with Marie from Lezouche, that she actually told me that someone had died. And that last, I mean, so from coming down into Beaufort, it's interesting. I managed to snap a pole. That was cool. Yeah.
Gosh, that's going to take some some going.
So that's my second snapping of a pole this year.
What do you do to them? Is that because you've wedged it in something and then you've you know, your momentum has snapped it?
Yeah, so there's this, like, they brought you, they had changed the course a little bit from the last time I ran it, and they brought you in this descent. It was much more fell running-esque than kind of what you'd expect of a UTMB race, where it's just like straight down this very, very steep, grassy, slidey kind of through a forest bank. And I got to the bottom where I could see the road that I needed to get onto, but it appeared that the only way to that was through this mud chute. And I was like, okay, right. And I didn't really want to sit on my ass and slide down, but so I tried to, like, put a pole down, put a foot down, and then I just slid through on my bum, and the pole was wedged into a tree and it just snapped. So I was like, okay.
No. Doesn't sound like a very elegant UTMB maneuver.
No, nothing elegant about it at all. But because I had also managed to snap a pole in Lavorado this year, when I got to Beaufort, where my husband could help me, we had a spare set of poles in the
there you go, it works.
Yeah. And so then I knew, like, for me, the climb out of Haute-Louse up to Col du Joly, last time I did it, I really struggled. There's, like, no water up there. It takes, I mean, at least 3 hours to do that section. So you kind of, you know, normally you just go off 2 bottles and be like, right, I'll get to the checkpoint for more. So this time I was a lot more prepared. I took an extra bottle in my bag, and at Haute-Louse, I saw my husband, and he said, don't be alarmed, Idaco's coming. And so Idaco is 56, and she is an absolute machine. Okay. She's amazing. And so, like, she was still half an hour away from me, but he was like, she is coming and she's going to pass you. And so I was like, right, just try and keep her behind me for as long as I can. Let's just keep going. And so I actually did that whole section, I mean, at least 40 minutes faster than I did the year before, because I was just so determined to try and I mean, I didn't keep her behind me. She passed me, you know, head down, Nordic walking like an absolute machine. There's a little, like, are you okay? I was like, yep, I'm okay. And off she goes. And, you know, then I was like, right, try and keep her in your eyesight for as long as you can.
Hang on.
She's just amazing. I have so much respect for that woman, because
I need to write her name down. She's already my heroine.
Oh, she's an absolute machine. And so, yeah, so I was really pleased to have kind of kept, you know, to be able to still put in that sort of effort at that late in the race and go, okay, we're okay. But coming into the descent down into Contamines, because I had been braking so much. Normally descending is my thing. I love it. I can throw myself down a mountain and I kind of just don't worry about it at all. But because I was so worried about falling on my finger, that I was just braking and braking and braking. And at that point, my feet, I was just like, oh my God, can I run downhill backwards? Would that work? Can I, like, it's like trying to, like, go really, like, on the side of my feet, like, I just did not want to put my feet facing forward. But yeah, and then it was just kind of into the finish, really. Saw my husband at Contamines, and it was like, right, let's get this done. And coming into Lezouche was where Marie caught me.
Okay.
And it was one of those moments of like, oh no. Oh no. Okay. Right. And she's like, come with me. And I was like, I don't think I can. So I was like, but Idaco's just up there, go and try and catch her. She's like, come on. I was like, oh, I'll see what I can do. And so coming out of Les Houches, I was like, right, come on, you can do this. So you can like at least close the gap and stay as close as you can to her. And she was hiking up a incline out of Les Houches, and she's like, come on, let's do this together. And I was just like, oh yeah, yes please, yeah, because I, like at that point, it's kind of, even if you were to sort of battle to the finish, I'd spent so much time alone that it was just such a joy to be able to run with someone and to have a conversation and to, get that connection that we kind of all do this for, is that connection that you have with complete strangers. And particularly after she told me what had happened, I just thought, oh, it kind of,
Yes. Does that heighten the sense of not wanting to be alone perhaps as well? Yeah. And
also just like, we're all in this together, and it was, it was really amazing to be able to finish with her and just go, this is what it's about. Like, we are all really competitive with each other, but we are also all out there surviving this together and trying to find that connection to nature, but also to like-minded individuals. So it was really cool. And I was just going into the race, I really wanted to kind of do it in 24 hours. So despite everything that had happened, to still have that 24 at the start of my time, I was just thrilled, absolutely thrilled.
Wow, many congratulations. That's fantastic. What a, yes, I mean, an adventure from start to finish, really, wasn't it? You I noticed you said that you changed your training, so both in actual physical training and your nutrition. I think you said you dropped the big back-to-back days and were doing the quicker, shorter training and races. Do you think that really helped you?
Yeah, you know what, like I don't even know now, 15 years of big races in my legs and in my body, and psychologically I have that. And it can be really, really difficult as an ultra runner to step back from that and to go, actually, I know that I can go out and run for 24 hours. Like, what am I going to gain by doing big back-to-back days? Normally I would go and if I had to recce a race route, that would be different, but I would go and I'd do like the first 100 kilometers of the Tour de Géant, or I would recce the UTMB, or I'd recce, the TDS. And it can be really terrifying stepping back from that and going, well, the damage and the tiredness and the recovery that you need from doing something like that, it starts to outweigh the benefits after a while. Because if psychologically you know that you can go in and you can race a mountain ultra, is it worth doing that, or is it worth actually building on your fitness and getting faster and stronger and being able to continuously train through those weeks instead of having to take a lot of recovery time and then build back up again? And so, I'm not saying I didn't have any wobbles about this. My coach, Robbie, so he's like, do you think I should do them? And he's like, look, if you really think you need to, then yes. But if you're just doing that because, you
feel you ought to.
Yeah, exactly. Then what's the benefit? And, and as a coach myself, like you're constantly trying to talk people out of doing those things that are going to need a huge amount of recovery, but that means they're not actually going to get any fitter.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was interesting to kind of finally take my own advice, really, and actually go, okay, let's do some faster, shorter races. I did quite a few VKs. I did like some 20K races. I mean, and like racing the Italians too, like at 20K, it's humbling how fast those women go.
No.
So that's always a good thing as well.
I mean, just racing a VK, that must make you stronger when you're not actually racing up the mountain. You must have several of those mountains in your legs because of it.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's those uphill races, particularly if you can get a cable car down, or even just uphill training, I mean, it's invaluable because you just don't have that same damage in your quads from doing all the downhill. So again, you can just keep training on training on training on training.
Yeah.
So I think that really made a difference for me this year. You know, I definitely got faster and stronger. And the last time I ran the TDS, I ran a reasonable amount of it with Anna Troop, and I think she will happily admit that her downhill is not as strong as her uphill, but my uphill was not as strong as her uphill. And I watched her go, and it was just like, I want to feel like that next time. Okay. I want the uphill to just feel like I am just flying up it. And so I think all of these shorter races really, really helped with that. They built a lot of strength on the uphill.
Cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
And
also just lucky to get to race too, right? Like,
wow, yeah, definitely. And your nutrition, I was a bit confused because you said you had, was it drink powder as a base with rice, Coke, and Orangina? Mm-hmm. Was rice the only sort of solids then?
Yeah, so I've never really been able to eat solid foods when I run. Not just that, when you start looking at weight to carbohydrate ratios, powders are your best option.
Yeah. And
for me personally, like, because I've struggled with my stomach for so many years running ultras, I like to know that if I can only drink, that I am still getting in a decent amount of fuel. Because, I can't chew bars. It just ends up sitting in there for like half an hour, and I'm like, no, this can go and feed the marmots now. So I find that if I start with a base, and then anything else on top of that is a bonus.
Yeah.
So, like my drinks have got 80 grams of carbs per 500 mils. Okay. So if I can only drink one of those an hour, I'm still really doing very, very well. In some of those shorter races, I was managing 100 grams of carbs an hour.
Can you actually take in that much liquid? That's what I would struggle with. I can easily drink 500 mils of drink an hour. Okay.
It's just practice too, right? And because if you know it's your food, then you just sip at it, and so it is just this constant source of carbohydrate going in. So it means you have a lot less of those kind of ups and downs because it's just drip feeding into your system.
Do you not just feel, does your tummy not just feel hungry? Or
I don't think I have once felt hungry in an ultra.
Okay.
But I would love to, and if I did, that would mean that I would, like at an aid station, if I felt hungry, great. That means you can eat more food. You could get in on top of the drinks that you're getting in. You could then have a sandwich, or I've really found this year, because I've really started to push my fueling more and more and more, my recovery is just a million times better than it used to be. Like these really hard, fast races, because I've been putting so many carbohydrates in there, and I've been fueling them so well, I've had hardly any muscle soreness afterwards.
I think that's what a lot of people forget, is that it's not just, you're not fueling just for the current situation, but you're protecting yourself for the next day, aren't you?
Yeah, like as ultra runners, we want to be able to do big weekly mileage or lots of hours out and all of that sort of stuff. And if you start neglecting your fueling, then it just makes everything so much harder. Your body can't recover as well. You can't train as well the next day. Then your body's not recovering well from that. And you just kind of start to dig yourself into this hole that can be very, very difficult to get out of.
Yes.
And like those long runs, they shouldn't be a weight loss exercise.
No, definitely not.
Your body needs that fuel to keep going, and it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice and very consistent practice, but I cannot tell you how worth it is.
Wow. It clearly works. So there, if that doesn't prove that we should all try it, and I'm sure we're all really bad at it. Well, I certainly am. Yeah, there is the results show how well it works. Anything? What's next? I know your poor van is in hospital. Quentin, who I thought was some poor friend of yours. I was like, oh my goodness, what's happened to Quentin?
Yeah, so Quentin has clearly decided that he needs a vacation. We are off to Greece tomorrow to do some sailing. So
Lovely.
Through COVID, when all of the races got cancelled, we went and learned how to sail.
Lovely.
Yeah, so we are going to go and practice doing that. This will be our first time with a boat by ourselves. Absolutely terrifying.
Okay. Yeah. Someone's letting you loose with a boat. Okay. Yes, because you do live such a wanderlust life, don't you? Do you plan? I mean, how far ahead can you plan, or do you want to plan?
I mean, not that far ahead. So, we're lucky. There is just the two of us. We don't have. I mean, we still have jobs and we have all of that sort of stuff, but we don't have the commitment of animals or children. So we are very much able to turn on a dime, which has been amazing through COVID because we've been able to go into and stay in places where the restrictions means that we can still get out and we can still exercise. And I mean, that's the main thing for me. I really honestly couldn't. I don't mind if they shut all the restaurants or all that sort of stuff. My husband's vegan, so it's hard eating out anyway. But I think, for us, like when Quentin broke down 2 days ago, I was a bit like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. Oh, what are we going to do? And my husband was just like, you know what, this is just a chance for us to have another adventure.
Yeah.
And so we'll go sailing in Greece for a week. We may stay there for another week, and then I have work back in London. And then it's taken a whole week, but I have just had a wee look at races, at what's next. So I think that I will run the Madeira Island Ultra Trail in November. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I've raced it before. Again, didn't have the best race there, so I'd quite like to go back and have another crack at that and do it justice.
Yeah, cool, fantastic. Well, thank you very much for talking to us, Sophie. I really appreciate it, and all the best in Greece and in Madeira.
Thank you very much for having me.